dark times are approaching us. Everyone can sense it, most especially me. But I sense new beginnings as well. The question is, how shall I deal with it all? The Adventures of Stardart and Pichu. Chapter 1. The Near Tragedy of Pichuliet. Part 1. It was a beautiful day in the land of Hoenn, on Pokeworld Beta. It was especially beautiful along Route 120. The wind was blowing peacefully, barely disturbing the surrounding trees and grass. The sounds of zigzagoons jogging about could be heard here and there, along with the other sounds of nature all around. Suddenly, a whoosh! A couple of yellow figures passed by at an impressive speed. One was humanoid in shape. In fact, he was somewhat human. Wearing golden armor, his short brown hair being blown by the wind in his face as he dashed on ahead. His steel blue eyes peered down at his yellow companion of Pichu, who was dashing along with him. This mysterious man was known as Stardart. He owns the largest company in the Alpha Quadrant, JG Network. He did it all: Pokemon training, running a business, supporting a family, practicing the magical arts, as well as the art of the blade, saving the universe, and then some. They say he was the busiest man in the universe, yet he never complained one bit. Well, maybe a little, but not that much. And today was like any other day. Stardart was out training with his Pichu. Pichu was a rather brave little Pokemon. He had a dream of becoming one of the strongest Pokemon to ever exist, without evolving. Stardart could see this dream himself, and has since been training Pichu. And today was no different than any other training day, or at least, for the moment. They had started running from Fort Tree City, which was a rather long run for anyone to do. Stardart noticed Pichu had been falling behind. "Come on, Pichu," he called to him. "Getting slow all of a sudden?" Stardart saw Pichu looked a little tired from running this whole time. He too felt a bit tired, but he knew this would strengthen the both of them. "Come on, catch up with Volt Tackle." Pichu acknowledged him with a nod, and started his move. Electrical energy crackled around the electric mouse as he started to speed up. His speed jumped as the full force of the attack was unleashed, creating a yellow electrical aura around him. Stardart let out a smile as he saw Pichu start to catch up. "That's a bit better," he said, before turning his attention ahead of him, noticing what was coming up. "Whoa! Watch out for trees!" As he finished his sentence, Stardart leapt over a tree root, with Pichu going under it. Stardart saw an opportunity to try a neat trick. He jumped off the trunk of one tree towards the large branch of another tree. With more grace than an acrobat, he swung himself around, hit the branch feet first, then jumped off that branch towards another tree trunk, and, flipping around again, jumped off that one towards the ground. He rolled, then, suddenly back in his running position, dashed forward once again, but faster than before. "Try to do that, Pichu," he called back to his Pokemon. "Perhaps you may learn something." Nodding in acknowledgement, Pichu did the same, with the same kind of acrobatic grace as Stardart, jumping and flipping off the trees, and it worked all too well. Pichu suddenly found himself going almost 5 times faster than before, easily blowing past his trainer. Stardart's eyes went wide with shock. Holy shit! He exclaimed as his partner dashed ahead. Wait for me! Stardart knew, at his current speed, he wouldn't be able to catch up. So, he decided to use some black magic to aid him, which was possible with him being part sage. He quickly casted a couple of haste spells to make himself move faster, then focused on catching up to his Pokemon. Meanwhile, Pichu continued on, unaware that he had left his trainer in the dust until he looked behind him. Satisfied with the result, he decided to stop. From his position of running on all fours, he stood up and applied pressure to his heels to slow himself down. However, this ended prematurely when he suddenly crashed into something, sending him back a bit. He rubbed his head a bit and took a look at what he ran into, only to find that what he ran into was looking back at him. To his surprise, it was another Pichu. He gazed at the Pichu for a sec. He could tell that this one was female through his instincts. "Oh man," he started. "I'm so sorry." "Oh, ow," the girl Pichu started, rubbing her head as well. "It's okay. You just need to watch where you're going." "Yeah, sorry about that. When I'm training, I tend to get out of hand sometimes." The girl Pichu seemed curious now. "Training? For what?" "Just training," Pichu started. "I plan on being the most powerful Pokemon ever," he said proudly. The girl Pichu giggled at that statement. "That's a rather large dream there," she said. "Yeah, well," Pichu started, getting defensive about his dream. "I've come a really long way since I started on it." "Pichuliet! Where are you?" a voice called out from somewhere. The girl Pichu turned towards where the voice had come from and answered it. "I'm over here!" From the bushes came out two Pikachus, one male, the other female. "There you are," the male Pikachu started. "Don't take off like that again." "You had me so worried," the female Pikachu said with concern. "Don't do that to your poor mother." Pichuliet started while rolling her eyes. "I'm not that young anymore, you know." Pichu was starting to figure things out. Your parents?" he asked. "Who's your friend here?" the father asked. "Just someone I bumped into," Pichuliet explained. "Although it's more like the other way around." Pichu hung his head. "I said I was sorry." Pichuliet's mother had a look of concern on her face. "You're not hurt, are you?" Pichuliet rolled her eyes again. "No, of course not. You worry too much, Mom." "And with good reason," her mother started again. "I know before long you'll grow up and want to move out on your own and all that, but that won't keep me from worrying." "Yeah, I know," Pichuliet let out a sigh. She then turned to Pichu. "You know, you still haven't told me your name yet." "Eh? Oh!" Pichuliet had a rather sheepish look on his face when he realized that fact. "How silly of me. I forget these things sometimes. To be honest, I don't have much of a name. People just call me Pichu." Pichuliet's father had a somewhat puzzled look on his face. "That's a rather basic name, don't you think?" "It works for me," Pichu said proudly. Just then, Stardart finally caught up. He cleared some trees and screeched to a stop. Everyone turned to look as he did so. "Aha! There you are, Pichu," he started. "Dang, it took me a while to catch up to you." Pichu looked happy to see him, while Pichuliet stared at him with a curious face. The Pikachus, however, most especially the father, looked less than pleased. "What? A human?" The mother was surprised. Stardart couldn't understand the Pokemon, because they spoke in their native tongue. It was one thing for him to understand his Pokemon somewhat, but something different for the wild ones. He pondered. "Making new friends already, Pichu?" Pichu nodded. "Yeah, somewhat," he said, his face turning into a sheepish look. Stardart understood that one. He could tell from Pichu's tone of voice and body language. "Somewhat?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Who's he?" Pichuliet asked, completely curious about this new thing in front of her. "Oh!" Pichu exclaimed. Once again he forgot introductions. "This is my trainer, Stardart." Stardart noticed he had become the subject of this talk. "Introducing me, are you?" "Yes, my name's Stardart. Pleased to meet you all." Enough! Pichuliet's father called out. Humans cannot be trusted. We mustn't speak with him any more. Stardart raised an eyebrow to this. You could tell from the father's tone that there was some big distrust with humans. Now hang on a sec. I can tell you don't like humans. How come? Pichuliet's father ignored him. Come on, Pichuliet. We gotta go. What? Why so soon? She was still very curious about Stardart. Don't argue with me, let's go! Just then, Pichu's ears went up. He could hear something, sense something. Something was off. He turned to Stardart. Stardart looked like he was picking up something too. You sense it too, don't you? He asked, and Pichu nodded. This got the attention of Pichuliet's father. He started looking around to see what it could be. Pichuliet's mother, along with Pichuliet herself, also looked around, but they couldn't see anything. Stardart closed his eyes and started to focus. Using all his senses and instincts, he searched, until, right there! Jump! He exclaimed, and he and Pichu jumped out of the way, as the 3 nets came after them. They missed their targets, but instead came over Pichuliet. The nets started to head back to where they came from, dragging a surprised and frightened Pichuliet with them. What? Help! She exclaimed. Pichuliet! The parents called out, both being overwhelmed with fear. Stardart looked up to where the nets were taking the little Pichu. As he did, he heard 3 voices start to laugh in a slightly evil way. The laughter came from up in the sky, as 3 figures were looking over the area from a Meowth-shaped hot air balloon. Oh, you got to be kidding me, he said. He knew who they were. Listen, is that a voice I hear? A female voice started. It's speaking to me loud and clear, a male voice continued. Floating on the wind, past the stars, in your ear, called out a Meowth, speaking plain English. Bringing chaos at a breakneck pace, dashing hope, putting fear in its place. A rose by any of the names just as sweet. When everything's worse, our work is complete. Jessie, called the female voice. It came from a woman whose long fuchsia-colored hair was made to curl somewhat around her. And it's James, called the male voice. It came from a purple-haired man whose hair could somewhat be described as a short mushroom top. Meowth. Now that's a name, the Meowth called out, again in plain English. Putting the do-gooders in their place. Team Rocket! In your face! They all called out. And as they did, a Wobbuffet and Mime Jr. came out, adding in their own little bit at the end. Stardart was not amused. Hey, you 3 again? It's bad enough you annoyed Red for so long, now you decide to just come and annoy me? What's with that?